Before time itself was measured, before the first whisper of creation echoed through the void, there existed a realm of unimaginable splendor. Heaven, a symphony of light, a ceaseless chorus of angelic voices, a place of perfect peace, unity, and boundless joy, all under the benevolent rule of the infinite, eternal God. But even within this paradise, a dissonance arose, a single note of discord that would shatter the celestial harmony, cascade through eternity, and plunge the cosmos into an enduring conflict. This is the story of Lucifer, the morning star, the brightest and most beloved of God's creations, whose heart, once radiant with celestial fire, became consumed by a darkness so profound that it birthed the very concept of evil. Prepare to journey into the heart of a rebellion that shaped the destiny of all creation, a story of pride, envy, war, the enduring struggle between free will and fate, and the ultimate triumph of good over absolute darkness. This is the fall of an angel, the rise of Satan, and the beginning of the end. Envision, if your mortal mind can grasp it, a reality utterly beyond the confines of our physical universe, a realm not of matter, but of pure, unadulterated spirit, not of darkness, but of incandescent, all-pervading light, not of chaos and disorder, but of perfect, exquisite harmony. This was heaven, the dwelling place of God, the uncaused cause, the prime mover, the Alpha and Omega, the very source and sustainer of all that exists, all that ever was, and all that ever will be. It was a place of unimaginable beauty, where the very air vibrated with the music of creation, where the light itself was alive with intelligence and love, where peace surpassed all understanding, and joy was the very essence of being. Imagine a symphony of colors unseen by human eyes, a chorus of voices unheard by human ears, a tapestry of sensations unfelt by human senses. This was the realm of the divine, the home of God and his angelic host. Within this celestial paradise, God, in his boundless creativity and infinite wisdom, brought forth the angels. These were not the cherubic winged infants of popular depiction, but beings of immense power and majesty, each a unique and perfect expression of divine artistry. They were warriors, messengers, worshipers, guardians, a vast and diverse host, each fulfilling a specific role in the intricate and breathtakingly beautiful tapestry of God's cosmic design. Their forms, though primarily spiritual, were capable of manifesting in ways that would overwhelm and terrify mortal perception. Their intelligence dwarfed the combined intellect of all humanity, their power exceeded the force of 1,000 supernovas, their beauty surpassed the splendor of 1,000,000,000,000 galaxies. They were the servants of God, the executors of his will, the inhabitants of his eternal kingdom, living expressions of his glory. And among all these magnificent beings, shining with a brilliance that eclipsed even the brightest stars, stood Lucifer. His name, a testament to his original nature, was derived from the Latin words lux, light, and fere, to bear, light bringer, light bearer, morning star, son of the dawn. He was, by many interpretations of sacred texts, the first and greatest of the archangels, a being of such radiant beauty, such overwhelming power, such profound wisdom, that he seemed almost a mirror image of God himself, a perfect reflection of the divine. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, while ostensibly addressing the king of Tyre, is often interpreted by theologians as containing a veiled, metaphorical description of Lucifer's pristine, unfallen state. It speaks of a being perfect in beauty, adorned with every precious stone imaginable: sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, lapis lazuli, turquoise, emerald, all meticulously crafted in gold and set in exquisite, intricate settings. These were not, of course, literal ornaments adorning a physical body. They were symbolic representations of Lucifer's inherent splendor, the divine favor that had been lavished upon him, the radiant glory of God that shone through him with unparalleled intensity. He was described as an anointed cherub who covers, suggesting a position of immense authority and responsibility. perhaps even guarding the very throne of God, protecting the holiness of the divine presence, a sentinel at the heart of heaven. He walked among the stones of fire, a phrase that evokes a sense of unparalleled intimacy with God, a place of intense spiritual power and breathtaking, almost unbearable holiness. Lucifer was, in essence, the pinnacle of creation, the masterpiece of God's artistry, the being in whom all the perfections of the angelic nature were most fully realized and expressed. He was entrusted with leadership over vast portions of the angelic host, with guiding the celestial choirs in their endless hymns of praise, with orchestrating the intricate harmonies of heaven, with leading the worship of God himself. He was the most beloved of God's creations, the angel who stood closest to the divine throne, the being who most perfectly reflected the glory, the majesty, and the boundless love of his Creator. And yet, within this seemingly perfect being, within this radiant heart, a subtle imperfection, a barely perceptible dissonance began to stir. It was not a flaw in his creation, for God, in his infinite perfection, creates nothing flawed. It was a flaw in his choice, a consequence of the very free will that distinguished him from a mere automaton, a programmed servant. It was the freedom to choose to love, to obey, or to rebel. And the seed of that rebellion, the root of that flaw, was pride. Pride, that deadliest of sins, the wellspring of all evil, began to insidiously, almost imperceptibly, seep into Lucifer's heart. He contemplated his own magnificence, his unparalleled beauty, his immeasurable power, his profound wisdom. And he began, gradually at first, then with increasing intensity, to compare himself to God. He looked at his own reflection, not in a physical mirror, but in the mirror of his own self-awareness, and he became intoxicated, infatuated, obsessed with what he saw. He started to believe with a subtle and insidious self-deception that he was deserving of the adoration, the worship, the absolute obedience that were given only to God. This was not a sudden, explosive, instantaneous transformation. It was a gradual, insidious corruption, like a tiny, almost invisible crack in a seemingly flawless crystal vase that slowly, inexorably widens until the entire structure shatters into 1,000 irreparable pieces. It began as a whisper, a fleeting thought, a momentary twinge of dissatisfaction, a subtle, almost imperceptible questioning of the divine order. Why, he might have mused in the hidden recesses of his angelic mind, should I, with all my splendor, all my power, all my wisdom, be eternally subservient to another? Why should I not be the object of worship? Why should I not rule? Why should I not be God? These questions, once utterly unthinkable, began to seem reasonable, even just, even righteous, to his increasingly distorted, self-aggrandizing perception. He began to rationalize his discontent, to justify his burgeoning ambition, to weave a web of self-deception that insulated him from the truth and propelled him further down the path of rebellion. He saw himself no longer as a servant of God, however exalted, but as his rival, his potential equal, perhaps even his superior. Story 1. The Angel Azrael's Doubt. Let us imagine for a moment an angel named Azrael, a being of lesser rank and power than Lucifer, but one renowned throughout the celestial realms for his keen intellect, his profound wisdom, and his unwavering dedication to studying and understanding the intricate, complex laws that govern the cosmos. Lucifer, in his cunning, approaches Azrael not with grand pronouncements of rebellion, not with overt challenges to God's authority, but with seemingly innocent, subtly probing questions. Azrael, Lucifer begins, his voice as smooth and melodious as the chime of distant crystal stars. You are known throughout heaven for your wisdom, your insight, your profound understanding of the intricate workings of creation. Tell me, my friend, does it not seem somewhat limiting that we, beings of such immense power and intelligence, are forever bound by these immutable laws? That we have the capacity to create, to shape, to influence, yet are not permitted to use that power as we see fit? Is that truly we freedom? Azrael, initially taken aback by the unexpected nature of the question, hesitates. He is accustomed to the established order, to the unquestioning obedience that characterizes the loyal angels. The laws, he replies, his voice tinged with a hint of uncertainty, are given by God for our own good and for the good of all creation. They are the foundation of order, the framework of harmony. But are they truly? Lucifer presses, his eyes gleaming with a deceptive, almost mesmerizing light. Or are they perhaps a means of control, a way to keep us, even the most powerful among us, in a state of perpetual subservience? Imagine, Azrael, if we could reshape creation, refine it, perfect it, according to our own understanding, guided by our own wisdom. Would that not be a worthy, even a noble endeavor? Would that not be a more perfect expression of our inherent potential? He presents Azrael with complex, intricate philosophical arguments, carefully crafted to appeal to his intellectual pride, to his yearning for knowledge, to his desire to understand the deepest mysteries of existence. He subtly twists logic, cleverly distorting truth, presenting a seductive vision of a better reality, a reality shaped by angelic will rather than divine decree. He even shows Azrael glimpses of alternate realities, simulations created by his own immense power, dazzling displays of alternate cosmic orders, where the angels are not mere servants, but rulers, creators, architects of their own destinies. These visions, though ultimately illusory, are incredibly seductive, appealing to Azrael's innate desire for knowledge, for understanding, for the power to shape and control. Azrael, though deeply troubled by these unsettling ideas, begins to doubt. He sees a certain twisted logic in Lucifer's arguments, a tantalizing glimpse of a potentially better reality, a world where angelic intelligence and power are not constrained, but unleashed. He doesn't fully commit to Lucifer's rebellion, not yet, but the seed of doubt has been carefully and deliberately planted, weakening his allegiance to God, eroding his faith, and making him vulnerable to further manipulation. The insidious nature of Lucifer's deception is revealed. He does not conquer through force, but through the subtle erosion of faith in the planting of doubt. Lucifer continued his campaign of sedition, his whispers of discontent spreading like a virus through the ranks of the angelic host. He promised them a new order, a realm of freedom and equality, where they would be rulers in their own right, no longer bound by the tyranny of God's laws. Story 2. The Warrior Angel, Malkah's Choice. Malkah, a warrior angel of renowned strength and unwavering courage, a being whose very name resonated with power, was famed throughout heaven for her skill in battle, her fierce loyalty, and her unwavering dedication to defending the celestial realms from any and all threats. Lucifer, ever the astute strategist, approaches her not with philosophical arguments or abstract concepts, but with an appeal to her martial spirit, her sense of duty, and her deep-seated desire for glory. Malkah, Lucifer declares, his voice now ringing with a commanding, almost martial tone, you are a warrior, a protector, a shield against the darkness. You have seen firsthand the imperfections, the vulnerabilities that exist even within God's creation. God commands us to defend, to react, to respond to threats after they arise, but he does not allow us to prevent, to proactively eliminate those threats before they can even manifest. We are forever on the defensive, forever reacting, never truly in control. He conjures visions for Malkah, powerful illusions of potential future threats to heaven, cosmic entities of unimaginable chaos and destructive power that could, one day, challenge even God's omnipotence. He argues that a preemptive strike, a bold and decisive consolidation of power, is not only justified, but necessary to ensure the long-term security and stability of the celestial realm. Imagine Malkah, he continues, his voice now laced with a seductive promise of power and glory, leading a legion of angels, not merely defending against sporadic attacks, but conquering, systematically eliminating all potential threats, establishing a new order, a stronger order, a more secure order, where such dangers are eradicated before they can even arise. You would be hailed not merely as a soldier, but as a savior, a hero, a legend whose name would echo through eternity. Malkah is deeply conflicted. Her loyalty to God is profound, unwavering, yet she also possesses a fierce, almost primal desire to protect heaven, to ensure its safety and security. Lucifer's words tap into her deepest fears, her most profound anxieties, and her highest aspirations. She sees, or believes she sees, the potential for a more secure future, a future where she can play a more significant, more decisive role in safeguarding the celestial realm. She makes a fateful choice. She agrees to join Lucifer's rebellion, not out of hatred for God, not out of a desire for personal power, but out of a misguided, tragically flawed belief that she is doing what is best for heaven, that she is acting in accordance with her duty as a warrior and a protector. This powerfully illustrates how even the most noble intentions, even the most profound sense of duty, can be twisted and manipulated by evil, leading even the most well-meaning individuals down a path of destruction and ultimate despair. The tragedy of Malkah lies in her sincere desire to do good, tragically misdirected by Lucifer's cunning. Lucifer masterfully exploited the angels' individual strengths and weaknesses, their desires and fears. He was a skilled manipulator, and his campaign of deception proved devastatingly effective. Story 3. The Angel Seraphina's Compassion. Seraphina was an angel of healing and compassion, renowned throughout heaven for her gentle nature, her boundless empathy, and her unwavering dedication to alleviating suffering and promoting harmony. Lucifer, ever adaptable in his methods of corruption, approaches her with a tactic entirely different from those he employed with Azrael and Malkah. He appeals not to her intellect or her martial spirit, but to her compassionate heart, her deep-seated desire to make the universe a better, less painful place. He shows her visions of the future, carefully crafted, deeply disturbing visions of humanity's eventual fall, of the pain, suffering, disease, and death that will come to exist on earth, the world that God would soon create. He paints a picture of unimaginable sorrow, of countless lives blighted by hardship and loss. He argues that God's plan, his allowance of free will, is inherently cruel, that he is, in effect, condemning his future creations to a life of inevitable suffering. Seraphina, he whispers, his voice now filled with a feigned sorrow, a carefully crafted imitation of compassion. You have a heart of boundless empathy. You feel the pain of others as if it were your own. You see the suffering, the injustice, the inherent fragility of existence. Does it not grieve you to your very core that God allows this to happen? That he stands idly by while his creations endure such torment? That he does not intervene to prevent this inevitable tragedy? He suggests that a new order, a more interventionist order, an order guided by angelic wisdom and power, could prevent this suffering, could create a world where pain and death are eliminated, where all beings live in perfect harmony and perpetual bliss. He presents himself not as a rebel, but as a savior, a liberator, a compassionate being who seeks only to alleviate the suffering of others. Seraphina, her heart deeply moved by the heartbreaking visions of future human suffering, is swayed by Lucifer's seemingly benevolent words. She believes tragically that she is acting out of compassion, that she is joining a movement that will ultimately alleviate pain, prevent suffering, and create a better, more just, more merciful world for all beings. This starkly demonstrates how even the purest of motives, even the most profound compassion, can be exploited by evil, twisted and manipulated to serve the purposes of darkness, leading to catastrophic consequences. Seraphina's fall is perhaps the most tragic of all, a testament to the insidious power of Lucifer's deception. The seeds of rebellion, so carefully sown by Lucifer, finally sprouted. A vast number of angels, seduced by his lies and promises, turned against God. Revelation 12:4, with its powerful imagery of a dragon's tail sweeping down a third of the stars of heaven, suggests the sheer scale of the insurrection. Heaven, once a realm of perfect unity, was now fractured, divided, poised on the brink of cosmic war. Lucifer, now fully consumed by his pride, his hatred, and his insatiable lust for power, openly challenged God's authority. He declared war on heaven itself, seeking to overthrow the Creator and seize control of the celestial realm. He gathered his forces, his legions of fallen angels, now twisted and corrupted by their rebellion, and prepared for the ultimate battle, a conflict that would determine the fate of all creation. The scene that unfolded was one of unimaginable grandeur and terrifying cosmic conflict. Heaven, once a place of perfect peace and harmony, was transformed into a battlefield. The very fabric of reality trembled. The celestial music was replaced by the clash of spiritual weapons. The light of God's presence was challenged by the encroaching darkness of rebellion. Michael, the Archangel, whose name itself means, "Who is like God?" Swing, a warrior of unwavering loyalty, of immense power, of absolute righteousness, led the armies of heaven. He was the champion of God, the defender of the divine order, the embodiment of unwavering faith and obedience. He and his legions of loyal angels, shining with the radiant glory of God, stood ready to defend the throne of heaven, to uphold the divine law, and to crush the forces of rebellion. Revelation 12:7-9 paints a vivid, albeit symbolic picture of this epic celestial conflict. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. This was not a battle of flesh and blood, of swords and spears, of physical weapons and brute force. It was a conflict of spiritual power, a clash of wills, a war of ideologies, a fundamental struggle between truth and falsehood, between obedience and rebellion, between light and darkness. It was a battle for the very soul of creation, a conflict that would reverberate through eternity. The loyal angels, fueled by their love for God, their unwavering commitment to His righteousness, and their profound understanding of the true nature of reality, fought with a ferocity born of pure, unadulterated devotion. They were empowered by the divine presence, their strength drawn from the very source of all power, their spiritual weapons forged in the fires of divine justice. Lucifer, now fully transformed into Satan, the adversary, the accuser, the opposer, fought with a desperate, furious, almost insane energy, driven by his boundless pride, his all-consuming hatred, his insatiable lust for power, and his burning, unquenchable desire for revenge. His fallen angels, now demons, fought alongside him, their once radiant beauty twisted and distorted into something grotesque, their celestial light extinguished, replaced by a terrifying darkness, their spirits consumed by malice and hatred. But the outcome, despite the ferocity of the battle, despite the sheer number of the rebellious angels, was never truly in doubt. God's power is infinite, absolute, unchallengeable, eternal. Rebellion against the ultimate source of all being, the foundation of all reality, the very essence of existence, is inherently futile, doomed to inevitable failure. It is like a wave crashing against an unyielding cliff, a fleeting, insignificant act of defiance against an immovable force. Satan and his forces were utterly, decisively defeated, their rebellion crushed, their attempt to usurp God's throne shattered like a fragile glass vessel against a granite wall. Their pride was their undoing, their ambition their downfall, their hatred their destruction. They were no match for the infinite power of God, the unwavering righteousness of Michael, and the steadfast loyalty of the heavenly host. The fall of Lucifer was a moment of cosmic tragedy, a cataclysmic event that reverberated throughout all creation, a turning point in the history of the universe. He and his fallen angels were cast out of heaven, expelled from the divine presence, banished forever from the realm of light and glory, exiled from the paradise they had once known. They were hurled down, like blazing comets ripped from the celestial tapestry, like lightning bolts flung from the hand of an angry God, as Jesus himself would later describe it. Luke 10:18, a vivid image of swift, irreversible, and utterly devastating judgment. This fall was not merely a change of geographical location, a simple relocation from one place to another. It was a profound, irreversible, ontological transformation, a fundamental change in their very being. Lucifer, once the light bringer, the most beautiful and glorious of all the angels, the being who stood closest to God, the most beloved of all his creations, became Satan, the embodiment of evil, the adversary of God and humanity, the prince of darkness, the father of lies. His once exquisite beauty was twisted and distorted into something grotesque, a hideous reflection of his inner corruption, a terrifying mirror of his shattered soul. His radiant celestial light was extinguished, snuffed out like a candle in a hurricane, replaced by a consuming, all-pervading darkness, a void where love, joy, and peace had once resided. His spirit, once filled with celestial fire, with divine love, with unwavering devotion, was now consumed by hatred, rage, bitterness, resentment, and an unquenchable, insatiable thirst for revenge against the God who had cast him down. His fallen angels, those who had made the fateful choice to follow him in his doomed rebellion, became demons, malevolent spirits dedicated to furthering his cause of destruction, to spreading chaos and misery, to tempting and corrupting humanity. They too were transformed, their angelic nature perverted, their beauty replaced by something monstrous and terrifying, their light extinguished, their spirits filled with malice, hatred, and a burning desire to inflict pain and suffering. They became agents of chaos, instruments of temptation, purveyors of darkness, the foot soldiers in Satan's eternal war against God and all that is good. Story 4. Azrael's Regret. During the cataclysmic battle in heaven, Azrael, the angel who had been seduced by Lucifer's philosophical arguments, found himself face to face with a loyal angel, a former friend with whom he had once shared the joys of celestial fellowship. He saw the unwavering faith burning brightly in his friend's eyes, the pure, unadulterated devotion to God that radiated from his very being. He saw the light shining from him, a light that stood in stark, blinding contrast to the darkness that now surrounded Azrael, the darkness that he had, in his folly, chosen to embrace. In that moment, amidst the chaos and carnage of the celestial war, Azrael realized, with a sickening, soul-crushing clarity, the catastrophic error of his ways. He saw with agonizing precision that Lucifer's promises were empty, his arguments flawed, his vision of a better reality a cruel and elaborate lie. He was filled with an overwhelming sense of remorse, with a profound and bitter regret, with a deep and agonizing sorrow that pierced him to the very core of his being. He desperately tried to switch sides, to rejoin the ranks of the loyal angels, to fight for the God he had betrayed. But it was too late. The choices he had made had set him on an irreversible course. He was wounded, both physically and spiritually, grievously injured by the forces of heaven, and he fell, not in glory, not in a blaze of celestial fire, but in shame, in despair, in the crushing weight of his own guilt. This illustrates the tragic consequences of doubt, the irreversible nature of certain choices, and the profound sorrow that accompanies the realization of profound error. His fall is a poignant reminder that even intellectual brilliance is no substitute for unwavering faith. Continuing the main narrative through the temptation of Eve, they, the fallen angels, the newly formed demons, descended upon earth, a world still young and pristine, still untouched by the corruption of sin, a world that had been created as a paradise, a reflection of heaven's own glory, a place intended for perfect harmony between God and his newest creation, humanity. Their arrival marked the intrusion of evil into God's perfect world, the beginning of a long, bitter, and enduring conflict that would span the ages, a battle for the hearts and souls of men and women, a struggle that continues unabated to this very day. Satan, now consumed by a venomous, all-encompassing hatred for God and all that he had created, immediately set about to corrupt and destroy, to mar the beauty of God's creation, to undermine his plans, and to inflict as much suffering as possible. His first target, his primary objective, was humanity, God's newest and most beloved creation, the beings who had been made in his own image, the creatures who were meant to enjoy a perfect, unbroken relationship with their Creator, to walk with Him in the cool of the evening, to share in His love and His glory. In the Garden of Eden, a place of idyllic beauty, of perfect peace and harmony, of abundant provision, where every tree bore delicious fruit and every stream flowed with pure, crystal-clear water, Satan, taking on the guise of a serpent, a creature known for its cunning, its subtlety, and its ability to move unseen, approached Eve, the first woman. He knew, with a profound and chilling understanding of human nature, that if he could deceive her, if he could induce her to disobey God's one and only command, he could strike a devastating blow at the very heart of God's creation, corrupting humanity at its source, severing the bond between God and His children. He did not approach her with threats or violence, with overt displays of power. He was far too cunning for that. He employed a more subtle, more insidious, more psychologically sophisticated approach. He used his formidable powers of persuasion, his mastery of deception, his profound understanding of human vulnerabilities, to tempt her, to seduce her, to lead her astray. He began by questioning God's commands, casting doubt on His goodness, His motives, His truthfulness. He subtly suggested that God was withholding something from her, something precious, something desirable, that He was, in effect, being unfair, unjust, even tyrannical. He insinuated that God was afraid of her becoming like Him, knowing good and evil, possessing the wisdom and the power that rightfully belonged to her. Genesis 3:1-5 recounts this pivotal, tragic moment, this turning point in human history, with chilling clarity and heartbreaking simplicity. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Has God indeed said, 'You shall not eat of every tree of the garden?' And the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die.' Then the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.'" The serpent's words were a masterpiece of deception, a carefully crafted blend of truth and falsehood, designed to exploit Eve's natural curiosity, her desire for knowledge, her yearning for autonomy, her innate aspiration to be like God. It was true that eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil would open their eyes to a new, expanded understanding of reality, to a knowledge of both good and evil. But it was a lie, a blatant and devastating lie that they would not die. Satan subtly, skillfully twisted God's clear and unambiguous warning, presenting disobedience not as an act of rebellion, but as a path to enlightenment, as a means of achieving equality with God, as a way to attain a higher level of existence. He appealed to Eve's pride, to her ambition, to her desire to be more than what she was, to possess a knowledge and a power that were not rightfully hers. Eve, tragically, was deceived. She believed the serpent's lies. She doubted God's goodness and His love, and she succumbed to the temptation. She reached out her hand, plucked the forbidden fruit from the tree, and, in a moment that would forever alter the course of human history, she ate it. And then, in an act of profound and devastating consequence, she offered the fruit to Adam, the first man, and he too ate. Story 5. The Farmer and the Serpent. Imagine, if you will, a farmer centuries after the fall, toiling in his fields, struggling to cultivate the cursed ground, wrestling with thorns and thistles, battling against drought and disease, his brow furrowed with worry, his back aching with weariness, his heart filled with a mixture of resentment and resignation. He is a descendant of Adam and Eve, an inheritor of their sin, a participant in the fallen world. He sees a serpent slithering through his fields, a creature of the dust, a symbol of the very deception that had brought about humanity's downfall. He remembers the story of Eden, the story of the serpent's treachery, the story of the lost paradise. A surge of anger, of frustration, of pent-up resentment courses through him. He picks up a heavy stone, intending to crush the serpent, to vent his anger, his frustration, his bitterness on this helpless creature. this living embodiment of the evil that had blighted his life and the lives of all his ancestors. But then, as he raises his arm to strike, he hesitates. He looks at the serpent, not as a powerful, malevolent deceiver, but as a creature struggling to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world, a creature just as much a victim of the fall as he is. He sees perhaps a reflection of his own fallen nature, his own vulnerability, his own struggle against the forces of darkness. He slowly lowers the stone, his anger subsiding, replaced by a dawning understanding, a glimmer of compassion. He realizes that killing the serpent will not undo the fall, will not bring back the lost paradise, will not erase the consequences of sin. He understands in a small but profound way the interconnectedness of all creation, the pervasive and enduring impact of the fall, the need for mercy, for understanding, even for those creatures that represent evil. This farmer's internal struggle reflects the ongoing conflict within humanity, the tension between justice and mercy, between anger and forgiveness, continuing the main narrative to the end. This act of disobedience, the eating of the forbidden fruit, was not merely a transgression of a divine rule. It was a fundamental betrayal of trust, a rejection of God's authority, a deliberate choice to follow their own desires rather than God's will. It was in essence a repetition of Lucifer's own rebellion, a miniature reenactment of the cosmic conflict that had shattered heaven, now playing out on the newly created earth. In that single, fateful moment, sin entered the world, disrupting the perfect harmony between God and humanity. Death, both physical and spiritual, became a reality, a terrifying consequence of their disobedience. The innocence of Adam and Eve was lost, replaced by shame, guilt, fear, and a profound sense of separation from God. They were banished from the Garden of Eden, their paradise lost, their future uncertain, their relationship with their Creator broken. The world itself was affected by their sin, becoming subject to decay, corruption, and suffering. The ground was cursed, bringing forth thorns and thistles, making labor arduous and painful. Childbirth became a source of intense pain, a reminder of the brokenness of creation. Life itself became a struggle, a constant battle against the forces of entropy and death. Satan had achieved a significant, a devastating victory, striking a blow at the very heart of God's creation. He had corrupted humanity, introducing sin and death into the world, and seemingly thwarting God's plan for a perfect and harmonious relationship with his creatures. He had established himself as the God of this age, 2 Corinthians 4:4, the prince of the power of the air, Ephesians 2:2, the ruler of a fallen world, a world now marred by sin, suffering, and death. From that moment forward, the biblical narrative portrays Satan as a constant, malevolent, insidious presence, a force of opposition working tirelessly to undermine God's purposes, to deceive and destroy humanity, to spread darkness and chaos throughout creation. He became the tempter, the accuser, the deceiver, the father of lies, the adversary, the enemy, all these titles reflecting different aspects of his malevolent nature and his relentless opposition to God. He is depicted throughout the scriptures as a roaring lion seeking someone to devour, 1 Peter 5:8, a predator constantly stalking his prey, searching for vulnerable souls to ensnare, to corrupt, to destroy. He is a master of disguise, capable of appearing as an angel of light, 2 Corinthians 11:14, to deceive even the most devout, to lead people astray with false promises, seductive lies, and cleverly disguised temptations. He tempts Jesus himself in the desert, Matthew 4:1-11, offering him all the kingdoms of the world, all the power and glory imaginable, in exchange for a single act of worship. This confrontation is a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative, revealing not only Satan's audacity and arrogance, but also his ultimate powerlessness against the Son of God. Jesus resists Satan's temptations with unwavering resolve, using the Word of God as his weapon, demonstrating the power of faith, obedience, and the knowledge of Scripture in overcoming evil. He appears before God to accuse Job, Job 1:6-12, 2:1-7, questioning his motives, challenging his integrity, and seeking permission to inflict suffering upon him to test the limits of his faith. This narrative highlights Satan's role as the accuser, constantly seeking to find fault with the righteous, to undermine their faith, to prove that their devotion to God is based on self-interest, on the blessings they receive rather than on genuine love and loyalty. Throughout the Old and New Testaments, Satan's influence is evident in countless ways, through demonic possession, through the deception of false prophets and teachers who spread lies and distort the truth, through the oppression of tyrannical rulers and unjust social systems that inflict suffering and deny justice, and through the general corruption of human society, the prevalence of violence, greed, hatred, selfishness, and all manner of wickedness. He is the unseen hand behind much of the suffering, injustice, and evil in the world, the architect of chaos, the instigator of conflict, the enemy of all that is good, all that is holy, all that is true. However, and this is a crucial point, a point that must never be forgotten, the Bible also makes it abundantly clear that Satan's power is not absolute, that he is not God's equal, that his authority is limited and ultimately subject to God's sovereign control. He is a created being, not the creator, and he operates within the boundaries, the parameters permitted by God. He cannot act without God's allowance, as is powerfully and explicitly demonstrated in the story of Job, where God sets specific limits on what Satan can do, protecting Job's life even while allowing him to be tested, to be afflicted, to be subjected to immense suffering. God remains sovereign even over the forces of evil. His ultimate authority is never in question, never compromised, never diminished. Satan may be a powerful adversary, a cunning deceiver, a relentless tempter, but he is ultimately a defeated foe. His rebellion has already been judged, his doom has already been sealed, and his final destiny is certain, predetermined, unchangeable. The book of Revelation, with its vivid, dramatic, and often highly symbolic language, provides a breathtaking glimpse into Satan's ultimate fate, his final judgment, his eternal destiny. He is portrayed as being bound in the abyss, a bottomless pit for 1,000 years, a period of symbolic completeness, representing a significant span of time, a divine epoch, during which his influence on earth is restrained, limited, and God's purposes are being worked out, his kingdom being established. Revelation 21 through 3. This is not necessarily a literal 1,000 years.